Great. So good afternoon, everyone. So I would like to invite our panelists, who will be the one introducing themselves. So if Sonny, Brar, Soulange, Henoud, we have also Samira, Kharchoufi, and we have Jenny Fan can come. Thank you very much. So we will need the mic for Jenny. You should go there. Okay, while we solve this technical issue, we will start. So welcome everybody to this very exciting panel about how to keep up with international food regulations. We are in a world where food safety and compliance are paramount, and staying ahead of regulatory changes is a challenge, yes? But it's also not a matter of legal necessity. It's also important for consumers' trust and also for consumer health. Great. With international food regulations becoming more dynamic, more complex, more ambiguous, and also more uncertain, it's very important for businesses to adopt strategies to keep innovating and keep ahead of all these changes that we are facing. We are very fortunate today to have an excellent panel of experts in this industry, each bringing unique perspectives and experiences in regulatory compliance, in innovation, in supply chain management, and also in quality assurance across global markets. Over these 50 minutes, they are going to share with you insights and also practical advice on how to cope with all these changes and also how to ensure operational efficiency. I am Bettina Abruzzese, Global Head of Scientific and Regulatory Affairs for the Food and Nutrition segment at Mars Incorporated. I bring 16 years of experience working in local, regional, and global regulatory roles for companies like Unilever and Danone, and today I will be the moderator for this discussion. So to kick things off, I would like each member of the panel to introduce themselves in 30 seconds, sharing the name, what is the current role, and how your work intersects international food regulations.
You're all looking at me, okay. Sonny will go first, and just to start off, Sonny does talk in third person. So I've been in food safety and QA and health and safety for over 21 years. I've been privileged and humbled to work for great companies in similar roles with IKEA Canada, Sobeys Canada, Maple Leaf Foods, and Toys R Us and Babies R Us. I'm also a part-time lecturer at York University where I teach food safety and Center for Disease Control, and I sit on the board of directors for Ontario Food Protection Association. Regulatory touches everyone. There's been a lot of changes happening, so today one of my focuses will be talking about FSMA 204. If you don't know what that is, you need to know what that is, but I'll get into that later on when it comes to my turn. So that's who Sonny is.
Hello everyone, I'm Soulange Henoud. I'm Vice President Regulatory and Compliance at Lallemand Health Solutions. It's a division of Lallemand who produces bacteria, yeast, and all the applications that are related to this. So in my team, we cover global regulatory, scientific affairs, and quality assurance interface to business. So as we heard this morning, return of investments, and this is what we do. I have been in this field for 18 years, and I'm here to share experience of never saying no, as we heard also from Sarah Jane. There is always a way. It's complex, but there is always a way.
Right.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jenny, and okay, here we go. And so I am the Assistant Regulatory Affairs Manager from H&H. So I have been working in this industry about 15 years across human foods and pet foods, quality assurance and regulatory affairs. So I'm also a part-time faculty in Conestoga College. So with my like cross-segment experience and also cross globally, so I'm gonna share about how to build a kind of robust regulatory compliance system.
So my name is Samira. Hi everyone. I'm the Regulatory Affairs Manager at Nature Touch Frozen Foods. I have been working with them since 6 years, since I landed up here in Canada. Previously I have a PhD in food industry. My mission is, I consider my mission in this company is to promote, preserve and protect the image of the company where I'm working. We do a lot of import, local and export, and that's why I'm here in this panel. Yeah, I'm taking care of all the artwork, labeling, food safety requirement, helping logistic in getting the right requirement to export to any market. So yeah, happy to be here and thank you for having me today.
Great, great. So let's start. Yes. So when we approach global food legislations, what we find is a web, a very complex web of laws, regulations, voluntary, mandatory standards, interpretational guidelines that usually are developed by international bodies. So we have the example of Codex Alimentarius or ISO, but we also have developments at country and even at state level. Unfortunately, it's not always done in a harmonized way, and monitoring and getting ready for all these developments is not an easy task. It requires a strong capability. So Samira, you're sitting next to me, so the first question would be for you. Can you share your experience in setting or building a regulatory watch system in order to keep track of all changes or new regulations?
Okay, so always the need is the thing that make you do things. So I will receive a mail from procurement, hey Samira, I want to send this product from Peru to Australia. Oh my God, so tell me, when can I do that? Can I do that? So, product has different components. Food safety part, micro, pesticides. Each country has its pesticide application, labeling, language barrier, certification. Can I sell organic certified in Peru to Australia or Mexico? All this need to be fixed by the regulatory person, the regulatory team. That's why I was searching here and there. What is Australia saying? What is Peru saying or Mexico? And then I felt the need that I need to understand each market requirement. That's why we need to develop insights across the different regulatory jurisdiction. This can be done by doing a regular monitoring watch, closely checking what are the different regulatory agencies governing the food products in each market, like FDA or USDA in US, EFSA in Europe, or EFSANS in Australia. In this way, you will get familiar with these different regulatory parties. You will understand what they are looking for, because what US are looking for maybe is not high priority for Australia or Europe. So in this way, you will understand what is the need for the regulatory sides from each market and toward each market. In this way, I was able to create a matrix to link the import with the local and the export market. So it will be easy for me to say, yes, Mexican product can fit for Australian because the pesticide application is more or less the same and the requirements are compliant. Also, you need to get more helps from your local consultant, local expert in food regulatory. This will help you to understand regional requirements. You will gain time. You will understand what the domestic market is asking for very quickly. The other thing that we need, I think, to keep is to be up to date, like everyone. IA, we need to get benefit of the IA, especially for me, these needs come from the language barrier. I can understand the regulation in North America or Europe. But what about Japan? What about China? How I will do? I cannot rely every time on consultants. Sometimes it's very expensive. Sometimes they take a lot of time to answer you, and you need to speed the process. So AA can give you helps. The other thing I think it's very important is being in such summits, locally and internationally. This will help you to get the takeout of what is going abroad. One more thing I heard this morning is social. What is the social? What's going on the social sides? I heard someone said people get noise, so the government will react. So if there is a pesticide issue here in Canada or in US, the FDA will focus on the pesticides on the border. If in Australia or Taiwan there is a virus problem in berries, they will focus more on the virus. They may change the regulation for the berries toward virus. So I do believe all these components need to be taken in consideration in order to be up to date and have the right regulatory watch that will help you continue the current project and help the team develop a new project. In other words, being proactive and not like starting something and then you will tell operation or R&D, no, this cannot work for this market.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and Samira, you mentioned something so important, right? And the examples were linked to traditional regulators, but actually today what we see is a surge in non-traditional regulators, right? So we see customers also bringing their own rules, NGOs, consumer associations also influencing and creating and adding more requirements, right, to the official list of requirements that we have. So it's so important to have that horizon scanning, that regulatory watch in place. And perhaps, the next question, Solange or Sonny can help, and you mentioned how important it is to keep all the internal interfaces, right, aligned and informed. How do you work with external consultants and trade associations to contribute to that horizon scanning capability?
Right. No, I'll take it first. Listen, if public is out there and they're screaming to the government's going to react. So with AI, and I'm not talking the AI that you're used to, I'm talking about the avian influenza that was first detected. I see some heads nodding in BC. So for those of you that deal with eggs or liquid eggs, we all know the challenges that we're facing right now at the border, right? So the public did an outcry. Now they made restrictions on CFIA certificates that have to be sent to the border, to the person who's going to then pass that truck to go off to the border and go back into, and get into USA. So the public outcry is a big piece where one can challenge and say, so this happened in Vancouver, how does me being in Toronto and my docks not happening in Vancouver and importing from a different dock and going into the country in different ways, well, how does that affect me? Well, USDA is going to be smart about it because USDA is an authority body. So USDA is going to say, no, we hear you. You know what we're going to do? We're going to make sure that all certificates at the border have to be CFIA compliant. Now, I am grateful. I don't know if a CFI is in the room, but I love CFIA. Just want to make that clear. They've been very respectful on their approach and what we need, but I love what you said. Sometimes it's not even about what's in the act or what's in the regulations. It's the public outcry. As leaders in QA and food safety, my biggest focus is obviously not ensuring that food safety is at excellence, but I also have customers that we support. Now, Fiera Foods, we deal with bagels and croissants, and I can guarantee the last bagel or croissant you had came from our company. But having said that, we don't want border restrictions. Why? Because shelf life. Because the longer that truck is at the border, the shelf life is now going to decrease. And our biggest focus is making sure the customer who grabs that bagel or croissant and before they put it in their mouth, it's at the best quality. So where I've been in this for 21 years and now being the VP of QA and food safety for Fiera, but I'll tell you, the changes that I'm seeing right now in regulatory aren't just coming from regulatory officials, aren't just coming from government, but it's coming from the public, where the government is then reacting and not even looking at it methodically, but just saying, hey, QA teams, you figure it out. So that's a big challenge.
I like what you said about it's not what is written in the act. From experience, I can say that there is a whole world between what is written and the practice on the ground in every country. we see a big shift, and I think associations can help. I think it's a key to have the right network, so you ensure you are at the table when something is being discussed, you have your voice, and you are on top of any regulatory development.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Solange,
Yes.
just because you were the last one talking. Probiotics is a food ingredient category that is far from being a simple one, right? It's not globally harmonized and actually is in constant evolution. Can you share with us the challenges that you face every time that you want to enter a new market or you're innovating with a new product that perhaps you will launch in 5 years' time?
Yeah, sure. So probiotics are live microorganism ingredients, so they are alive. And what the biggest challenge we have is that there are very little regulatory texts specific for probiotics and considering their live nature. So a lot of the requirements cannot be applied, like specifications cannot be met because it's live, it grows, it will. So this is the biggest challenge. But then come the challenge of being able to say something in one country, not being able to say it the same in another country. I can give an example. In Canada, probiotics can reduce the risk of antibiotic-associated diarrhea, example. If we go with the same product just across the border in the US, we cannot say find the product with saying the same thing because it will be considered a unlawful drug, so it has not been approved. Yeah. So you have to be very careful what you say. And another one we are seeing currently is we heard this morning about investments, and it's clinical trials cost a lot, so it's a big investment. But how you get a return on this investment if you cannot claim what you're finding in the study? And now what we see more and more as trending is that the aspect of where the study has been conducted. So let's say we have a study conducted in Canada, we want to sell in Indonesia. Indonesia will require a local trial. And it's not only for efficacy data, it's also for safety data. So this is what is the most challenging. But to answer your second question, if we think about innovation and 5-year or long-term program, I think what we usually do in the team, we look at the global map as a maze, and we see where we can access, which market we can access quickly, so we can build a history of use or a marketing experience. And even if we cannot say a lot, example, in Europe, the access to market for probiotics is very easy and quick, but claims cannot be made. And even the term probiotic cannot be used in many member states, but is evolving continuously. And if we look then at the US, we can have quick access to market, but we can claim very soft. In the meantime, we conduct the study. We look to a country where claims can be reviewed and approved, because this brings a big support when we substantiate claims in other countries where you do not need pre-market approval. So, and then example, Health Canada, we are very happy to be in Canada and working with Health Canada, who recognize the category and the special considerations. And then we get a claim approved, and then we expand internationally. So there is always a way.
I just want to compliment you on two things, because I agree with this, and I want the other speakers, so not the Sonny and Solange show. But just quickly, know your region that you're dealing with. So our company, we deal with Japan, Korea, Taiwan, China, and there's different regulations.
Yes.
We allow may contain, right? It may contain sesame seeds. Okay, legally I'm covered, right? From a legal standpoint, you asked earlier, sir, what was your legal implication? So that's the answer, right? So if you grab a blueberry bagel and it has a sesame seed on it, legally I'm covered. And for the most part, anybody who's allergic to sesame seeds, when they say may contain, they're most likely not going to eat it. But there's also countries there's no may. It's either you have it or you don't. And that's it. You have it or you don't. There's no me. So learn the language and also know the culture that you're dealing with. Because even with the may, they want to know your changeover procedures, how you're cleaning your belts, what are you doing when you're dealing with allergens and non-allergens. But I have no problem sharing something that didn't go so well with Sonny. And I was in Japan, and knowing the culture that you're dealing with also. We're all food safety and regulatory specialists. But I came in there and I'm like, hey, new equipment, we have a new team, this is awesome. And then I started try to give everyone high fives. And I had an interpreter. Then my interpreter politely took me aside. He goes, listen, we don't give high fives. It's not culturally appropriate. And then I was like, okay. So it's not just about knowing the regulations, but also knowing the culture that you're dealing with. Because the biggest thing you want to ensure is no matter who you're dealing with, you're always showing them the respect.
And maybe one last addition, also know the authority,
Right.
the different authority thinking, because example, if it's a novel food, sometimes it's easier to start in Europe, while in other is easier to file your GRAS determination to the US, and then you go in other country where you can show that it has been reviewed by another authority.
Yeah. And to complement that, even know the different authorities that you have, even in the same country, because sometimes advertising authorities will interpret things in a different way to the regulatory enforcement authorities for labeling. So,
You got it.
to add even, more complexity. Thank you so much. So, Jenny, you mentioned before you're a regulatory expert in building compliance systems. Yes, and we know that if we place in the market a product which is non-compliant, that will face economic, legal, and also reputational consequences. So looking inside a company, yes, how can all the regulatory requirements that apply to the products that you commercialize be embedded to the daily operation? So helping the different functions involved in the value chain of the development of a product really understand all these requirements to mitigate the risk of non-compliance.
Yes, I think the rest of the panelists already shared the challenge and the kind of strategies how to navigate this dynamic regulatory environment. So I will basically share 4 points. That is from my insight. So I think firstly, I would encourage everyone to build a country of regulatory spec. So basically, the specification, if you think about the product specification, is a kind of the same tools. So we want to kind of summarize in an easy, understandable way and all the different countries' regulation. So for example, we can include like raw material or additive requirements and labeling requirements, process requirements, especially. I think the weight control is kind of the area sometimes we forgot. And so I think that's different country. They have different guidance about how to declare the weight and how to manage the weight during the process. And also, if your product that require like health certificate for export, so your process control is very important to include like your sterilization, timing, and temperatures. So it's very easy for your team to understand what type of process that can be exported, like the product was produced from, can be exported to another country. And I think second one is I think we should have a very clear communication channels between our market units and our manufacturer units. Especially, I feel like our regulatory compliance become very more challenged when we have R&D in one location and we sell our product globally. So the communication channels like our regulatory team probably need to understand where are the products of country of origins from. And then when the local regulation change, we will be reach out to those specific persons and to share the regulatory change and provide the key summaries, like effective timelines. And also then we can work together on the impact assessments. And I especially think proactively engage with our manufacturer unit technical team is very important. I think third one is about we need to build a serious process on the related regulatory improvement, such as labeling, approve raw material, additives, translation approve, claim approve, those different process. We can leverage the SciPoc that's part of the tool in Six Sigma to develop those type of process. So we can inline like who has the receipt. So I think as a regulatory, we tend to put a lot of things on our shoulders, but I think this has to be dedicated across the company. And I think the last one is claim supporting documentation. So especially when I am in the industry, which we produce the human supplements, pet foods, and pet supplements. So we do a lot of product claims. That is a very key selling point for our product. So we basically produce, we have a claim database. So basically in our database, we include different claim wordings. Like for example, if I say this product, if I put the claim like optimum stool quality on the labels, so in my database, the first information is what the intended message is. So so then you basically translate this claim into another kind of lay language. So in this case, is really this product will result consistent stool quality and quantities. Then we will include the usage. So basically, it's an on-pack claim or it's a white page claim. So I think everyone understands like on-pack and white page has a different regulatory risk levels. And the third part is about the approved countries. Different countries, they can accept a different type of claim. Some countries, they can accept more stronger claims versus a softer claim. So we would like to include which countries has been approved this type of claim. So it's really help us, our PD and our marketing even to generate, generate some ideas when they are at the ideation stage. I think the last one is most important is the supporting documents, right? So what is the literature review and what is the recipe requirements that can support this type of claim? So it's really help our R&D team to develop recipe and also help our local regulatory team to basically do a recipe assessment.
Right,
Yeah.
right, Jenny. And linked to that question that I asked before, one for Sonny, can you share an example? And I think that you mentioned, a good example before on what are the most effective ways to communicate regulatory changes to stakeholders, but across the supply chain to ensure food safety requirements are met.
Firstly, get your leader on board. Message comes from the top. So if some of you are VPs or directors or managers, doesn't matter, you're very important. But what I do is I meet with our owners. So once you have the ownership or support, then you send that communication to all your business partners that you need to, which is a perfect segue to FSMA 204, which I'm going to talk about right now. This is a very big regulatory change that's happening. So to answer your question, to effectively communicate, involve your leaders, involve your team, let them know first. Don't let everyone know together. And then make sure that they are there with you to support you with the message. Because it's not just about quality. Because I'll tell you right now, when everything's going great, for those of you in manufacturing, it's way to go, production. And when something goes down or goes south and it doesn't work well, it's who they're first to blame? Quality, okay? I don't got to say it. So we all know that. So involve the owners, make sure the leaders support the message. FSMA 204, if you haven't heard of it, you need to. Okay, so you haven't looked at it, it's Food Safety Modernization Act by the FDA. I was privileged enough to speak. I was actually the moderator with FDA in Texas a few weeks ago. And what is FSMA 204? So FSMA, I already explained, 204 is the section that's applicable to the Act in FDA. That's why they called it FSMA 204. Traceability, traceability, traceability. The public wants to know, farm to fork. Where did the product come from? And before I eat it, what was all the processes that happened? So there's a lot of regulatory compliance people here and professionals. Make sure the deadline to be compliant, does anybody know? 23rd, 2026. Whoever said the 23rd. If I had a gold star, I'd give you a gold star. Absolutely. Okay, so it's a year away. And what does that mean? Traceability, that they want to see everything from start to finish. So when you look at labeling and you see EU, US, CA, you already know the product went from Europe to US to Canada. What the public wants to see is more items that are with more transparency but less points of entry, right? So what is FSMA 204 in regulatory? Look it up. Great to hear that people know the deadline. It's very serious. You have to account for every single traceability, not just a traceability exercise. This isn't a BRC audit or FSSC 22000 or your requirements under GFSI standards. This is you able to show the FDA, and by the way, don't think because you're in Canada, okay? Because I've had a lot of, oh, Sonny, I'm in Canada, I'm exempt. No, you're not. If you do business in US, if you have business partners, thank you, sir, for acknowledging, or you do any type of work, your customers must be able to provide traceability. Now, I'm privileged and humbled that I get to teach at York University. I don't teach anymore, but when I did, I taught Food Safety and Center for Disease Control, and the topic was farm to fork. You're the public. Forget about quality. Forget about regulatory. You're people. You don't want to know where your food came from. You don't want to know before you put that in a photo, what were the touch points? So FDA, very smart of them to regulate that. And again, 204 is the section in the Act. But what does it mean to you, and why is Sonny bringing this up? Number one, look it up. Number two, as of January 23rd, 2026, all of you, if mandated, you will have to show all traceability for every single ingredient. Number three, Sonny's tip. If I'm you, because Sonny's doing this, and I already started off saying I talk in third person, this will continue for many years, is get it in your contracts. Now, not all of you are involved in contractual agreements. Sometimes it's your sales team that manages it, but make sure that you put in a clause that, hey, FSMA 204 is coming. I want to make sure before you do that agreement for the year or 2 years or 3 years, whatever your cycle is, that we will ask for every traceability piece from that supplier so they know fully what the expectation is. Now, I loved, and this is my last piece, that I had FDA there. And her response was, we're here to support you. Send an email to FDA, and we'll tell you exactly what you need to do. Where I came back and said, really? I don't think everyone's like super ambitious to send an email to FDA, let alone call out their name. Hey, me at Sonny's Foods don't know too much about FSMA because we feel that we may get red flagged. Oh, Sonny sent it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. We're going to go audit Sonny. That's not the point. But the good tip that she gave, and it came from FDA, is that use an email that you don't often use without your company name. Send an email and just say, hey, I'm working for this company. Here's where we are. Can you give me some tips? So we have great speakers, great knowledge, a lot of expertise. FSMA, FSMA 204. It's 1 year away. Your companies need to take this very seriously. This is an act, and it's about traceability, traceability, traceability. And my last piece, I keep saying that. What do I feel? If you were to ask me, like, Sonny, you've been this for 21 years, and what do you feel? I honestly feel the way we're going, eventually it's going to be from the farmer who plants the seed. Show me the picture of the farmer who planted the seed. I want to see that sprout. I want to see it grow. I want to see where it went, how it was cooled in your farming area. I want to see the 53-foot trailer that came there and picked it up. I want to see when it went to your facility, how it was monitored, and I want to see it at the grocery store on the shelf before the customer eats it. Traceability is very key, and I'm telling you, this is the future and what the customer and public is demanding.
Great, great. Thank you, Sonny. So these are all fantastic insights, right? How important is to set up a horizon scanning system, how important is also to embed all the regulatory requirements in order to help our product development, our quality and safety teams to actually develop products which are compliant, how important claims are, and actually how different the countries can interpret things and actually traceability, but most importantly, how do we create awareness inside the organization to actually understand that this is not a nice to have, this is a non-negotiable in order to keep operating. I have a last question for all members of the panel. What policy changes or regulatory updates would you recommend to make food regulations more effective and efficient?
Well, I think that there will always be specific consideration in every country. I think harmonization is key. And by harmonization, I don't mean exactly the same thing because we have to take into account like the cultural habits, the diet, the exposure, everything, many elements. But I think the harmonization in the way of making clear and attainable requirements, like something we as the industry, we can meet. It's not like very difficult requirements. So I think harmonization in the way of assessing things would be also a key, like not depending on the reviewer opinion, and then if you resubmit, you have another opinion. So we face this a lot, and among countries and within the same country.
I would add that to what Soulange said for the harmonization. Some countries are focusing on some sides or parameters more than the other country. So if all countries work together and fill the gaps, so if, for example, Canada is more focusing on pesticides or virus, and the FDA is focusing on additive, for example, maybe the scientific research that have been done in US can be used in Canada and vice versa. In this way, we will speed the harmonization and will help industry to easily export and import from the different corner of the world.
Yeah, I want to build on the harmonization. So I think like in the pharmaceutical food industry, they do have like ICH as a global organization. They do harmonize, they provide guidance in terms of pharmaceutical development. So they do, in terms of also the clinical study. So I would think it's kind of critical so we can influence the way how the government develop the regulation. But I think on the other side, for the industry itself, we really wanted to manage the change more robustly, and so the change, like technical set of change and then people set of change, how to best engage our employees to willing to adopt the change, and they should have ability to implement change that also is worth to thought about. Yeah.
And that's my last point. We're so focused on customer engagement. What about employee engagement? Equally as important. So my answer to that is a little bit different, is to make sure that you involve all stakeholders and don't be the QA cop. It's something I'm going to talk about at 4:15 in my session, but be a QA partner. If you're around your team members who are operations, logistics, HR, marketing, sales, and your go-to is recall and people are going to get sick, then people are going to tune out. Be a professional. Let them know how this doesn't just affect food safety, but it interrupts the business. And that's how you'll get your colleagues on board too. So I feel, again, over 2 decades in this industry, that there is a habit of QA to raise red flags, and we will get fined, we will be shut down, we will be public, which is not all wrong. I'm not saying it's incorrect, but people will be turned off right by your approach. So change that approach. I'm not your leader, I'm just here to give you tips and insights. But if I can leave you with some takeaways, is do not have your go-to to be recall, fines, and negative public publicity, but actually saying effective ways of solutions and making sure that we do right by the customer. Because at the end of the day, that not only affects marketing, that not only affects logistics, it affects your sales. And at the end of the day, the bottom line matters to all of us. So that's my approach, is I used to be the old Sonny, used to go in and say, no, FDA section clearly states and 32.1 clearly says that we must, and they're not food safety professionals. They rely on you, on your expertise. But don't go in there as a QA cop, go in there as a QA partner, and there's a difference.
And what is the key term? Risk assessment.
Risk assessment.
Yeah, do the risk assessment.
Yep.
The real risk, because sometimes there is a theoretical risk.
Right, and take the feedback. If you do a risk assessment, and your teams come back and they're like, well, Sonny, I don't. And you're in your head, you're like, you don't know nothing. You're not certified. I'm food safety. I know all. Be open to feedback. Because my team's here today, and they know a common phrase that I always say, feedback is a gift, because feedback is free.
Right. And, perhaps to complement, and you mentioned harmonization, I think that it's fundamental when we work about, harmonizing regulations in an even more fragmented world, because what we see is actually going the opposite direction, is to really strengthen private-public partnerships. We can give information, we can share our experience with officials, and they can also learn from us. So if we are in global roles and we have the advantage of having our teams in different countries and getting first-hand information, is to also share with officials and educate them, because perhaps they are not aware of what is happening in Japan, what is happening in Argentina, or what is happening in South Africa. But we do, and that information can be helpful for them. So thank you very much. I am sure that the panel triggered many questions from the audience. So yes, I think that we have someone.
Yeah, one in the back there.
Brar?
Hi, Sonny, this question is for you. Since you mentioned the FISMA 204, as a food industry, I wanted to understand what's the difference between our current traceability system and with the FISMA 204 that we have to do.
Traceability system that you have right now is internal, and what you have from now, when it enters your plant, and then it goes to your customer. The full FISMA process is start from finish, meaning the ingredient that you get from your supplier, what their traceability was, how they got it, how you got it from your supplier, and then going to your customer. So before it was neutral point to exit point, now it's previous point, neutral point, and exit point.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Do we have any other question?
Good day, everybody. My name is Jennifer from Cardiff, Canada. My question is directed to you, Soulange, but I welcome feedback from the rest of the panel. You mentioned about how there was this difference between the regulations as it's written and its interpretation, and that's what we find as well. So I'm just thinking, what's your tips, tools? How do you bridge the gap between what is written on paper and what it actually means?
I did not hear well. Did you?
Yeah, I think that she was asking about bridging the gap between what is actually written in the regulation and how it's interpreted.
I mentioned this in the answering about how important it is to be part of associations, because by being a part of association, you are continuously following, you are continuously having an opportunity to dialogue with authorities on the name of the industry, and it's important because then you know what are the real thinking and expectations. So it's not always what is written as is. It could be differently interpreted, but by having this dialogue continuously, you know at least what they are really expecting. And I know it's not one-time answer, because it changes with people, which is normal. It changes with the time, and this with how much knowledge they have about build about certain ingredients or your question, then this thinking can change. So to keep up, it's very important, to my opinion, to have a right network, a big network. It's not only reading the text.
Yeah, I think I just want to build one point. I think it's also important to monitor your regulatory environment, because your compliance is one is on the severity side, the other side is likelihood, like what is the government's enforcement action, or there could be enforcement discretion at certain period of time. So work during the trade association, also monitor what your competitors does, is also help you to have a right balanced risk assessment on the regulatory related risk. Yeah.
I would add, for overseas country, for example, you can rely on your customers to help you understand what are the requirements of the regulation. Your representative, the sales team there, they may be very knowledgeable if you explain for them what is your needs, and they do have contact there to help you understand what is really requested and what is really needed.
And maybe one additional tip is, don't be afraid to challenge the regulatory requirement, and even have this discussion with authorities, thinking that always you can justify that it's for the protection of the consumer, that at the end. So if something is, let's say, safe for Canadian, why it wouldn't be safe for Europeans, example, or Australians, and so on. So sometimes I think we should not be afraid of challenging the regulatory requirement, building a scientific rationale and go with that. And by experience, it helps sometimes.
Do it respectfully, all right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's the one thing you caught out of it. Okay, good. Yeah, I agree with what you said. I think the feeling in some of you is, I ain't going to challenge no regulatory official or inspector. Get them out of my facility, no issues, and thank you very much. But just do it respectfully, right? So that's the biggest thing, is I respect you, I appreciate your years of experience. However, I have some questions or some feedback I'd like to share with you. Approach it in that way versus saying, you don't know what you're talking about. How did you become inspector? What's the recruiting process? So you don't want to do that, because at the end of the day, as much as they are there to support you, they can also give you some challenges, which you don't need.
So we have a question here.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
No.
Oh, you're bringing the mic?
Thank you so much. It's a fascinating presentation. My question is about global regulatory monitoring. And from your experience, do you see any catalyst market in either Europe or like South America, that you see one regulation popping up and then the other regulators kind of using that as a benchmark and then trying to implement that regulation in different countries? So if you see that, what is the pattern that you're watching, and what advice would you give to the audience here?
Yeah, I think it depends on the topic, but let's say if we talk food additives, the prohibition of certain additives starts always in Europe, and then it goes elsewhere. Example, sustainability, like regulation, is now very advanced in Europe, and we know it's coming, starts to be like more and more developed in the other countries. So it depends on the topic. Sometimes, and for probiotics, I can witness that Health Canada has been really the great example of how to regulate, especially for natural health products, how to regulate properly probiotics, and let probiotic science continue, let communication reach the consumer. So I think it depends on the topic, but
I agree. Canada's the best.
absolutely.
No, I agree with that. It's not often a regulatory official will reference another country's regulations that may supersede or be a better example than theirs, because then they're just contradicting their own government body. But to answer that question, I would say disclaimers. Again, I'm a big believer that may contain needs to be removed. And as a parent, I have a daughter who's 10 and a son who's 5, and I have a lot of people in my family and in my circle whose kids or even themselves have allergens. So either tell me you have it or you don't, and I'm okay to eat it. Because we all know here, that word may, why is that word may even put in there? What's the reason? Legal obligation. We said may, you can sue us. So I want to see it to get to a point where it says contains, and that's it.
I think in terms of developing a new regulation, I think sometimes our government tend to learn from other countries, especially when they are not kind of functional experts on this area. So I think when we try to engage on a certain technical side, we would like to educate them how other countries regulate this area. But in the meantime, I think the government also will think about the risk levels in their particular countries and their customers' demands, and how this regulation can boost their economic growth. So I think those kind of combinations, we as an industry, we can think about when we approach them on the drafting a regulation. Yeah.
Well said.
And it depends, as Soulange was saying, right? It depends on various regulatory trends. We have health and nutrition, right, with perhaps an epicenter in South America and Latin America, now being expanded to other regions. Sustainability with an epicenter in Europe, but we see that other countries in other regions will also adopt. Unfortunately, what we see is that we see the trend, but the way that the different countries are then defining their own local regulations and the execution varies always a bit. So if you want to commercialize the same product with the same formulation and the same label in, let's say, 10 countries, impossible.
Right.
Yes?
Yep,
So what we see is that even countries in the same trade cluster are diverging and developing their own country regulation.
Being
I
a regulatory
think-
professional will make me never be bored. Always there is something to do.
I think this is due to the need of each country and the public effect. So if we are more interested in the food safety sites, maybe we will not focus in organic like USDA recently. So it's a priority for each country. But we need to be proactive. So if it doesn't come this year, maybe after 5 or 10 years. So that's why the team need to be proactive and consider what is maybe coming next.
Right.
Yeah.
And just to end it off is showing respect to every culture and all the people in the world. I worked at Maple Leaf Foods at the poultry facility, which is a fancy word for the chicken slaughterhouse. So chickens came alive and flapping, and they left sealed in a box. What's halal? What isn't halal? In our workplace at Fiera, what's kosher? Right? So there's a lot of public respect, and you've heard me say that terminology lots. I think it's food safety is very important to remain Canadians, but also make sure that we show respect to all the cultures that are also Canadian.
Right. Any other question from the audience? No? Well,
Thank
we
you.
can close. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.